So I'd like to open up our talk with a disclaimer. Our views are not the views of Occupy Portland or Occupy Together in their entirety. We are not ambassadors or spokespersons on behalf of the movement. We're here to share our personal stories, our shared experiences, and the direction our group has taken since it formed at the encampment. For my part in this story, I came into Occupy as a reactionary. I moved to Portland from Brooklyn this past summer, and I wasn't living here very long before turning on the TV and seeing the beatings and mass arrests and pepper sprayings in a place that I still feel to be my home city. So, very angry, first day, October 6th, huge march filled Chapman Square, and at the end of the day, I took off. The next day I came back to check what things were going on, and a tent city had arisen. And within that tent city, I came upon Leah, who is right now illuminating our talk with a drawing that she has put together. She was sitting behind a cardboard desk labeled library that she had pieced together with a few zines and books on top of it. And the audacity of this action to build a library in a public park just pulled me in immediately. So we became instant friends, and I was spending 12 to 18 hours a day trying to build the library. And what was a handful of books turned into 1,300 books. And as we continued to collect materials, people brought other things to us, flyers. They started bringing their writings, their journal entries from what they had written at camp and sharing their experiences. And as people brought those materials, they started to connect with each other. And as they started to connect with each other, we found the library turning into something of a school. And that school continued to develop. Workshops began being set up, and those workshops attracted, I think we had 70 presenters, both traditional and non-traditional educators alike, making use of that space, really seeing it as a place for education. And education was really central in the minds of a lot of people to where we were in that space, and there were libraries and occupations all across the country. Well, eventually the park went down, the encampment went down at the park, but we were able to salvage most of the materials. But more importantly, we salvaged the working relationships that we had developed in that space. And we continue to hold education as a priority, free education as a priority in moving forward. And a lot of the working groups that developed out of that space are still alive and active today. And one of the most long-standing groups to come out of that space is a group working on compassionate communication. And Hilary can bring you into that.
Thanks, Mark. My life has been pretty much transformed by my experience with Occupy and definitely with compassionate communication. We took a strategy workshop that was put together by Jesse Laird, who spoke earlier today in November, and we happened to have a section in there on compassionate communication, and out of that grew a long-term compassionate communication group. Compassionate communication is usually called nonviolent communication, but I like to call it by what it is and not what it is not. It's a form of communication that's based on the understanding that we have many universal needs, and that when those needs are met, we feel feelings that we consider positive. We feel happy, we feel excited, we feel engaged, we feel alive. When those needs are not met, we feel feelings that we would consider negative. We feel depressed, we feel frustrated, we feel overwhelmed. And so we've been learning this method of communication that is based around this concept of human needs, which is so tied into the Occupy movement. And we're finding that it is enabling us to cooperate at a level that we just were never taught to growing up in a culture that really prefers competition over cooperation. And I'm just really grateful to be here with these people to share what we have to say today. Elmira would like to share also about another project that we have developed.
Thank you, Hilary. When I began working in the encampment, I went directly to the kitchen because I have a passion to meet human need. And there was so much need inside of that encampment. People who were not used to having access to food on a 24-hour basis when they were hungry, people who were not used to having access to shelter when they needed to sleep, when they needed to dry out. After the encampment broke out, I began taking the compassionate communication courses as well. And looking around us in our community, I saw so much human need. And because I grew up in extreme poverty, I have a passion to meet that need. So I began a project that I call Occupy the Shelters. I was reading the Portland Tribune, actually, and they came out with a story of local faith communities opening up their facilities and their buildings to house the houseless for an overnight shelter. And what they were requesting from the community in order to keep going and offering this resource was shelter hosts. Individuals that come in, open up the doors, open up the showers, and open up the kitchen, and basically keep safety inside of these shelters. And so I responded and put together a group of people to be shelter hosts, and we have effectively kept one shelter open during the winter, and we have 15 more shelters who are on the waiting list. We are simply waiting for more shelter hosts to be able to get more people off the streets, and that project is going extremely well. What I see is our responsibility to the houseless, because they helped us keep that encampment for the time that we did and helped us develop these relationships and get to know each other. I feel a huge responsibility to acknowledge their needs, and that's where Occupy the Shelter steps in.
Cool.
Thank you.
So for what I've seen about Occupy, it's been largely about identifying human need and finding the most effective strategy at filling that need, which obviously Elmira has found passion in. One of the things that got me most excited about Occupy when I first started going down to the camp was that I saw this space had been created that gave people an opportunity to go and represent whatever they cared most about, whatever they were truly passionate about. So one of the projects that's been gaining most of my attention more recently is a project called Embassy. And basically what it is we're designing a space that can give people an opportunity to come and represent what they're truly passionate about, what they really want to do in the world, and what they have to offer. Because all too often, all we represent is labor hours or market share or these terms and phrases that our economy has defined for us. And really what we're looking for is what's alive in you the most and what you really passionately want to share with the rest of the world. So we encourage passionate individuals to come in and chat with us in any kind of conversation that they feel most comfortable in. And basically, we're looking to help organize groups of people into following what they're passionate about in a way that can fill their needs. So, like for example, one of the first projects we're working on is a print co-op. So we've got 2 or 3 people so far, and we're looking to get just a handful of regular people that have a passion for maybe print media, design, and intentional living. And our place is merely organizing that household so that we can fill the need for housing at an affordable rate, and give people the opportunity to do a job that they really have a lot of value in, and gives them a lot of purpose, and is exactly what they're looking to do with their life and what they're looking to offer the rest of the world. And I think that that's really something that's missing in our society, where we're given all these choices, but a lot of these choices that we're given aren't really what we are resonating with. So the ability for us to be able to identify our passion and follow that is a sacred concept to me. And I want to be able to offer that to other people and offer the experience that a lot of us shared at camp to as many people that are willing to take that opportunity. And yeah, I guess that sort of wraps up the embassy in a nutshell. But we're gonna move into the next part of our talk, more in a question and answer form, because we're more comfortable having a dialogue versus a monologue. It's just kind of more something that goes with our style. And Mark's gonna lead us off with some of the questions that have been collected throughout the day from the audience that we've been talking with.
So the first question I have on this list is, what as a group has Occupy done to offer connection and support to groups already doing good works in Portland?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah.
So in my experience, one of the really amazing things that's been happening in Portland is this organizing body called the Portland Action Lab. Basically, it's a representative spokes council model, so a bunch of different groups of people come together to discuss the next big action that is in solidarity with Occupy Portland, or is the most priority action that they've consensus upon in their group. And yeah, I've just seen so many people and different organizations come in and start affinity groups and start other organizations just so they can be part of this major day of action that's next on the agenda. Most recently was February 29th, which was shut down the corporations, kind of outing ALEC, a major player in the legislative action. But yeah, that's where I see it happening. Well,
also, Occupy just kind of, in its nature of pulling in all these different interests, it acts as a meeting ground for activists, and the bulletins and the calendars, they tend to get filled up with a variety of different things that are happening within Portland. There's a lot of shared attention being brought to projects that to most people might not be related, but have really caused some cross-cooperation, maybe you could call it. So should we go on to, all right, see what we got. Do you see Occupy unifying nationally?
When I hear this question, I really struggle with the inherently hierarchical structure that we are so accustomed to in American culture. The desire to have this such a unified voice, I struggle with, because for me, Occupy is all about autonomous action. We have a General Assembly, which is the main organizing body of Occupy Portland, but the only real need to connect with that main body is if you need their permission to put the Occupy Portland name on something. We have a fantastic food team, and they do food advocacy and a lot of different things, and they've started a dispersed urban farm. They did that over the course of about a month, and if that needed to go through a centralized process, that couldn't happen. And so a big part of Occupy for me is getting used to the fact that we live in a free country, and we can decide that we're able to do what we think is most important to make the world the way that we want it to be. And so for me, I dissent from the desire to have this strong national organization, because it's all about regionalizing. It's all about bringing power out of that centralized structure and into the hands of the people that should have power in their own life.
Thank you, Hilary. I believe that one objective of the Occupy movement is to bring human liberation to humans. And we are all oppressed in different ways, and my oppression is not the same as somebody else's oppression. Every city is going to be different and unique, and the oppression that they face is going to be different. So the strategies that they're going to employ to break down that oppression are going to be very, very different. So unifying that voice sometimes can be very, very difficult. As a movement, as a whole, what is an objective that we can claim is to bring awareness to the fact that there is exploitation happening, and there is things that need to be changed, and a lot of this country doesn't really realize that at this point. So we're trying to bring that awareness, and as a unifying voice, we can do that, and I think that we have done that. But again, rising up against oppression in whichever way that you are oppressed is really what this movement brings to each individual human.
That's good. So I think we probably only have time for about one more, but what would your advice be to a young child on how to become extraordinary?
I'll give my short answer. Turn off the TV and go outside. Right after you watch a couple more TED Talks.
Yeah. Hit it on the head. I mean, like, just be involved in your community. There's so many ways to plug in. There's so many interesting and helpful and great people to meet if you just go out and you start doing what you know you can. And I think that in tying up what we've kind of been touching on, like, we've all kind of been in positions where we've had to find ways of assuming enough authority to grant people the permission to do what it is that they've been wanting to do. I mean, that's what the library was saying. Oh, we're a school. Go ahead, you're a teacher. And that's it. That's all we did. It was smoke and mirrors, and it worked. So I really would encourage everyone of every age, go out and see what needs being done in your community and just do it. And I guess our time is running up, so here in Portland, if you are struggling for ideas for how to plug in, there are a laundry list of great ways to plug in and spend your time and work with your community and get needs met. And we set together a landing page on our school's website, ourschoolportland.org. Check it out if you get a chance. I'd like to thank TEDx Concordia for inviting us to speak with you. It's been a pleasure, and this is great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.